Evicting tenants from hell. If you're a property investor, then sooner or later you're going to face the prospect of having to get rid of a bad tenant. You may just end up having to evict a tenant from hell, like I did. Evicting a bad tenant sometimes requires a different approach to the normal legal process. In this video, I'm going to tell you the story about how I acquired a tenant from hell and how I went about solving the problem and evicting this guy. This video is not about shock value. This video is about thinking out of the box, finding a solution to a real problem, getting rid of your tenant, and all the while avoiding lawsuits and going to prison. You laugh. A friend of mine who had a bad tenant, and he said, I'm going to get rid of my tenant and forget the legal system. I'm going my own way. And he says, it's my place. I'm going to do as I please. And he was at the premises busy. He broke in the front door. He was busy replacing the lock. And while he was doing that, the police arrived and they arrested him for breaking and entering into his own apartment. Can you believe it? Our laws say that while the tenant is an occupation of the property, if you break in as a landlord, you're actually breaking the law. So they arrested him, took him off to prison, and he went out on bail shortly after. But anyway, that's another whole story. If you want to hear that story, actually, leave a comment below. And if I see lots of interest in this story, I'll actually get him on and I'll interview him and let's get it from his mouth, exactly what went down, and let's all learn from his experience. I'm Neil Foster. I'm a property coach and I'm the author of Property Investment 101. And if you want to grab a copy of this book, then I'll leave a link below and you can grab a free copy of the book. And hopefully that'll get you on the road to property investment. The best way to avoid getting a bad tenant is through careful tenant screening before you sign an agreement with them. But unfortunately, with the best will in the world, sometimes you end up in a situation where through the actions of another party, you end up bearing the brunt of it as a landlord. And that's my story. That's exactly what happened to me. So let me jump into my gory story and I'll tell you how it all happened, how I acquired this tenant, and how I eventually got rid of him. I had a tenant in a 3-bedroom apartment, and this young woman and her sister lived there for more than 2 years without any problems. They paid their rent, they looked after the property. The buy-to-let formula was working, my tenant was paying my rent, I was using the rent to pay the bond. Everything was working nicely. Happy days. Until things went sour. And the way things went sour was my tenant received a job offer in another city. So rather than come to me and ask me to cancel the lease or something like that, she just upped and went. And she left the property in the hands of her younger sister. Now, her younger sister was naive, to say the least. And she thought, well, I've got 2 spare bedrooms here. Why don't I rent them out? And she sublet them against the law, or against the lease agreement anyway. It's not against the law to sublet. But the lease agreement doesn't allow her to do so, but she did so anyway. And what's worse is she rented out the apartment to a large Nigerian guy of a less than ideal reputation, shall we say. And what this guy did is he invited a couple of his mates, equally large Nigerian guys. They moved into the apartment. She freaked out and she left. She bolted. But now I had 3 guys living in my apartment, 3 or 4 maybe. It appears that they were doing drug dealing and my apartment had been hijacked. My apartment had been hijacked by 3 Nigerian drug dealers, and now I had a problem. But I didn't know my problem at first. The way I discovered that I actually had a problem is, firstly, the first thing that happens is the rental stops flowing. So my agents tried to get hold of the tenant and couldn't. The tenant wasn't responding to emails, wasn't responding to phone calls. So my agent went around to have a look, and she called me up and she said, Neil, we have a problem of the Nigerian drug dealer kind. Your unit's been hijacked. And I went, oh no. What now? I've never faced one of those before. I was in uncharted waters. So I thought, let me go and see what's happening. And I got into my car and I drove across to have a look at this apartment and try to meet up with the guys and work something out. But when I got there was nobody home. So I looked in the window and what I saw shocked me. It really shocked me. The place was complete squalor. I could see the cockroaches from outside the window. The kitchen was grime everywhere. It really looked ghastly. I don't know how people can live that way, but that's how they were living. So I thought, oh, what now? And in South Africa, the eviction laws are different to, I suppose, anywhere else in the world. Every state, every country, the eviction laws are a little bit different. But in South Africa, eviction normally requires money, attorneys, and time. And I'm afraid I didn't have time for all of those things. And what's more, when your tenant is a foreign national, your attorneys have to involve the local embassy. So now I had to deal with attorneys and embassies and to start the eviction process. But that's not all. You cannot start an eviction process until you know the identity of your tenant. So that was my next problem, is how do I find out who these people are? So firstly, I had to find out who they are and then follow the whole eviction procedure. And that really was going to be a problem. And in a flash of inspiration, what I did is I went to the security guards. And this unit is in a secure complex. And it's got a ruling body, a governing body called the body corporate. And they appoint a security company to handle the perimeter security and the access control. So I went to them and I drew on years of negotiating experience. And what you do when you negotiate is look for a win-win. Both parties need to win. When both parties are winning, you have a solution. So what I did is I went to the security guards and I said to them, we have a problem. I told them that my property had been hijacked. I used the word that really got the attention. I said my property had been hijacked and there were now 3 drug dealers living in my apartment in their complex. And so we both had a problem. And how are we going to solve this problem? In discussion with them, it appeared that they had just changed the security system. And the access system now required that every tenant have a remote control that was programmed. And the only way they could get in and out was by using this programmable remote control. So we could switch my remotes off. So we did. We switched my remotes off. And then I said to the security guards, tell these guys when they arrive, because they're not home at the moment, when they come, say to them they have 24 hours to move out to get their stuff, because 24 hours from now, they were going to be refused entrance, because now entrance for them was manual only. And then I said to the security guards, please give me a call when you've got the keys from these guys. So 24 hours later, the following evening, I get a phone call from the security guard to say to me, sir, your tenants have left. They didn't leave the keys, unfortunately, but they are gone. I was elated. I had achieved an eviction in 24 hours at 0 cost. So I went around to the apartment, broke into the apartment to see what it was like, and it was appalling. It was shocking. The kitchen cupboards some of them were ripped off and missing. There were cockroaches everywhere, grime everywhere. If you want to know how I got rid of those cockroaches, then click this banner up here and it'll take you to a video where I discuss how I got rid of those cockroaches. But the rest of the apartment was appalling. The walls were in a state, the carpets were beyond repair, and I thought, okay, time to refurb. So I got my contractor in there and we replaced the carpets with tiles, so I never have to worry about carpets again. We repainted the place. I replaced the entire kitchen and stove. And within 2 weeks, I had a brand new tenant who is there to this day, paying rent as normal, and there's horror stories behind me. But as horror stories goes, it wasn't that bad really. I spent 30,000 Rand to refurbishing the place, but now I've got a refurbished apartment. This apartment cost me 120,000 Rand about 17, 18 years ago. It's now worth about 650,000 Rand. From the word go, the tenants have paid all the costs. So this apartment has actually cost me 0. From the word go, it cost me nothing. So to invest 30,000 Rand now wasn't really a big problem. The financial returns are fantastic. They're out of this world. So I don't want you to let my gory story frighten you from investing in property. This has happened once in 17, 18 years with me, and we could remedy the situation fairly well. So what do we take away from this video? The first one obviously is to use your wits. When you find yourself in uncharted territory, my best advice is to get hold of a seasoned investor, seasoned property investor who's local, who knows the local lie of the land. He'll have some ideas. He'll be able to tell you what you can and can't do. Make sure you don't go to jail in the process. And take their advice. And of course, the second thing is to look for the win-win situation. There's always somebody else who shares a problem with you. If you're a landlord, then the second takeaway from this video is to recognize the importance of very careful tenant screening. And if you want to know how I screen my tenants, well, that's a topic for another video. And which reminds me, if you want to stay up to date with all our videos as we upload them, then subscribe. You'll find a little logo here. Click on the logo and subscribe, and then you'll be notified when we upload our next video. And you'll probably find this video or this video useful as well. So till next time, thanks for watching, and cheerio.